Hello, listeners. Welcome to our English program podcast, Kaleidoscope. Listeners, in our today's program, we have a talk on the topic how social media is changing English language. And to talk on this topic, our expert for today is Dr. Sumit Paul, who is a research scholar of Semitic languages, culture, and civilization. A polyglot, he writes in 7 languages. Sumit Paul contributes to world's premier publications and portals in several languages. He also teaches languages at world's renowned universities. So let us listen to the talk how social media is changing English language.
Hello, listeners. The subject of today's radio talk show is how social media has impacted our language, particularly English. World's top notch grammarian, linguist, and lexicographer, Sir David Crystal is of the view that the structure and texture of all languages somewhat change after 3 decades. In other words, the languages spoken and written in the 80s of the last century have undergone some changes, if not a sea change, in the new millennium. Mind you, Professor Crystal's observation is not a recent one. He observed this 35 years ago in May 1989 during a lecture at Oxford University, when the social media had no presence and the internet was not in public domain. Sir David may not have visualized the meteoric rise of social media at that period in time. Otherwise, he would have opined that the language would change after every 3 to 5 years, thanks to social media. While social media has impacted all tongues, the focus of this talk is on the changes English has faced and experienced because of the social media and various social platforms. Here, the point is not to state that the social media has contributed to the overall deterioration and desecration of languages. Because in the changing linguistic scenario, what the purists and connoisseurs consider as deterioration and defilement may be considered as welcome changes by a majority of people, rather users. So decline in a language is a relative issue. But to be candid, the way English has gone through a complete transformation in the last 10 to 15 years because of WhatsApp and other social platforms, those who love it are really baffled. Neurolinguists are of the opinion that when a language is rampantly used, rather overused by the majority or the masses, its structure, texture, and the grammatical core get impacted. While social media has turned all of us into English users, it hasn't added to our linguistic skills and abilities. Someone has rightly said that while a person is exposed to English, he is not expert in it. This sums up the influence of social media on all languages, especially English. An altogether new brand of a lingo, yes, it's a lingo, not a language, has emerged, much to the dismay of all those who love English. Today's communication is like instant coffee or 2-minute noodles. You swallow or gulp them down. You don't relish, sip, or quaff. This approach impacts a tongue Moreover, rapid communication requires less words and more signs. Words have been replaced with emojis and acronyms, abbreviations, and whatnot. These have dethroned full sentences. We are resorting to emojis to convey our feelings and emotions. When YOU gets reduced to just the letter U and ARER is relegated to the letter R, a language is bound to suffer. Reading and writing, I mean proper writing when you put a pen to paper, have taken a back seat because no one reads. Even newspapers have become redundant, and conventional pen paper writing has been. Lack of reading and conventional writing have stunted our thinking process. We are constantly text messaging using fewer and fewer words and more signs and abbreviations. Neil Reckman, a communication expert at Australia's Sydney University, calls it a pattern based, gadget oriented communication, which is not conversation at all. This pattern based communication on social media has killed the essence of a language, particularly English, because the predominant language down under is English. The same can be said about the Indians and their English on social media. If you notice, nowadays most of us are not conversing. This needs attention. We are communicating. The difference between a conversation and a communication is while the former is elaborate, the latter is too brief and often incomplete. The incomplete and implied communication is always inimical to a language. Remember, a sailor's SOS and a soldier's signals may help in urgency. They don't contribute to enriching a language. Not just English languages thrive and also survive when time, space are available. But to quote an English poet, we indeed have no time to stand and stare. Now we all seem to be in a tearing hurry. One more thing that seems to have impacted the quality of languages on social media is a widespread wrong perception that the syntax, orthography, punctuation, and all the embellishments are unnecessary. Be brief is the new mantra, the modern dictum, and the latest decree or edict on the social media. But that is wrong. The Bard of Avon may have said brevity is the soul of wit, but its opposite is also equally forceful when we say enumeration is illumination. Yes, enumeration is illumination. Where is enumeration on the social media? It's all truncated and depleted. Our erroneous belief that if we write correct English with all embellishments, people will scoff and jeer at that. Needless to say, it is completely wrong. So many of us intentionally write in a hurry sans any punctuation and other necessary things. With the passage of time, this becomes our habit. Masses follow this trend. Robin Stallmayer's observation is bang on when he wrote in The Guardian in 2020. The quality of any language is determined by the way it is used by the masses. All the more when it emerges on the social media. Visual emulation or text imitation syndrome is also responsible for the formation of a new kind of language and its development. According to this syndrome, our brains follow a set pattern of text written by those whom we consider as knowledgeable or at least linguistically better equipped. So, when these linguistically better equipped people write something very humdrum and grammatically wanting, the lesser mortals cannot discern that and they follow such badly written text en masse. That is the reason the listeners may have noticed that there is a proliferation of identical messages on social media. A language needs variety. If badly written identical texts are there on the social media, how can we expect read, write and hear good English? The worldwide collective tendency not to edit the text before sending it has spoiled the language, or rather the sanctity of a language. On the social media, the moment we type out a message, we send it across the very next moment without editing it. This undesirable habit has destroyed our overall sense of language. To sum it up, the reason for the emergence of a new variety of English emerging on various social platforms can be adduced pointwise. Masses resorting to English for the easy and quick communication. The Majoritian apathy towards the improvement of a language is lacking. Our extreme casual attitude on social platforms is not helping any language to grow, develop, and thrive. Third, our herd mentality or sheep syndrome, following others and not trying to improve our own linguistic skills, is spoiling all tongues on social media. Lack of reading and writing is obvious when we express ourselves on these platforms. Too much visual engagement is not letting the brain imbibe the intricacies of a language. A false notion that the language used on social media is modern, contemporary, and happening must be removed from the consciousness. On the contrary, the language of social media is a lingo. We must be able to distinguish between the language of real life and the lingo of social and virtual world. Social media is here to stay. It is not completely condemnable because there is nothing so bad that there is not some good in it. People have benefited from it, and in fact, there are many who have learned the nuances of a language from this medium. So it is up to you how you use it, how you perceive it, and how ably or badly you learn from it. Lastly, Professor Alex Bannister's comment will be germane to the whole issue of social media impacting English and other languages. He says, now mobile in every hand and easy access to the internet have created a kind of linguistic and social egalitarianism which is quite alarming. Though it may sound outright supercilious, the fact is all aesthetic qualities require exclusive nurturing. Creativity doesn't blossom in crowds. Languages, though spoken by all, are creatively layered. English may be a universal language. All are not equally good at it. Social media's primary objective was to create a lingo out of a language which would be intelligible to all. It succeeded. And it succeeded to a great extent in creating a lingo by ridiculously oversimplifying English. This parallel language on all social media has influenced all walks of life so deeply, rather so weirdly, that now many state boards in India have allowed their students to write their papers in that kind of language, especially English. This is a matter of grave concern. Youngsters should never be allowed by their teachers, professors, seniors, and parents to follow and use a not so standard version of English that is popular on social media. The inculcation and indoctrination of an incorrect language at an impressionable age is something we all must be concerned about. To encapsulate, while adults and seniors may distinguish between standard and substandard English, on social platforms, youngsters can't. So follow the social media English, but also read the works of Shakespeare, Emerson, Lee Hunt, Southey, Hemingway, Arkinine, etc. for knowledge, for knowing the basics of standard English. Finally, thanks for listening to me. I hope you like this radio talk show.
So, listeners, that was a talk on the topic how social media is changing English language. This talk was given by Dr. Sumit Paul. Hope you enjoyed listening to him. We will be back with another exciting program. Until then, thanks for listening and please stay tuned as our next program follows.